It began not with a poisoned apple, nor with a glass coffin or a prince's kiss, but with a promo image, simple, stark, and utterly polarizing, in which Brett Cooper, clad in ivory elegance and framed by a backdrop of forest and fantasy, emerged not merely as a character, but as a symbol, a rebuke, and a declaration of cultural war. The air was already thick with tension. 87 years after Walt Disney gambled everything on a doe-eyed princess and 7 cheerful miners, the tale of Snow White, once innocent, romantic, and nestled in the golden cradle of childhood memory, had erupted into the front lines of the most unexpected battlefield, the modern culture war. And while Disney, the kingdom that once reigned unchallenged, seemed determined to reconstruct its castle with bricks of revisionist ideology and a mortar of market-tested wokeness, a new contender rose from the shadows, not from Hollywood, but from the heart of an ideological media empire with a mission that thundered louder than any enchanted mirror, to reclaim the fairy tale and to dethrone the giant. In the opening salvos, the contrast couldn't have been more jarring. At least Brett Cooper looks like Snow White, some murmured, not as a jab at Rachel Zegler, Disney's controversial casting choice, but as a critique of the fundamental changes Disney had made to the story that once saved the company from collapse. Disney's version, announced with fanfare but quickly smothered in firestorms of backlash, had chosen a different path. A live-action adaptation starring Zegler, a talented Latina actress, but one whose repeated comments and reimagined narrative cues ignited a powder keg of nostalgia, fury, and disillusionment. "It's not 1937 anymore," Zegler said in an interview, words meant to empower, but which instead became rallying cries for fans who felt betrayed. The love story, the very heart of Snow White, was cast aside as archaic, the prince repainted as a stalker, and the beloved dwarfs, whimsical avatars of joy and virtue, replaced with ambiguous, magical creatures, stripped of charm, depth, and meaning. Disney doubled down on their reinvention, believing that the masses were ready to forsake tradition for transformation. But what they hadn't anticipated was that the very people who kept Disney's legacy alive, families, parents, children raised on the melodic lull of "Someday my prince will come," would revolt. Boycott threats surged, memes turned savage, comment sections exploded with fury. And amid the wreckage of Disney's PR missteps, a new banner rose. It bore not a mouse, but a crown. And at its helm stood Brett Cooper, a woman unknown to many outside of the YouTube and conservative media spheres, but who, in a matter of months, would become the face of an alternative Snow White, one untethered to Hollywood's rebranding machine and dedicated instead to preserving what fans felt Disney had shattered: love, beauty, innocence, and timeless storytelling. The Daily Wire, helmed by Jer. But even as the Daily Wire's vision galloped confidently toward a 2024 release, emboldened by a roaring base of supporters who saw in Brett Cooper not only a princess, but a cultural crusader, the behemoth that was Disney refused to yield so easily, retreating behind the impenetrable walls of its billion-dollar kingdom with a mixture of quiet panic and manufactured poise, scrambling behind the scenes to course-correct what many were now calling the studio's most egregious betrayal of its foundational myth. Disney had become a paradox, too big to fail, yet increasingly blind to the audience that had built its empire brick by brick, VHS by VHS, memory by memory, and nowhere was this disconnect more glaring than in the run-up to the film's revised 2025 release date, a postponement that insiders claimed had nothing to do with production delays and everything to do with audience rebellion, viral rage, and a rebranding effort hastily sketched in executive boardrooms, suffocating under the weight of market research and social backlash. The leaked footage didn't help. A blurry behind-the-scenes image showing what appeared to be the new dwarfs, a strange, ragtag lineup of magical misfits that looked like a half-formed committee of CGI placeholders, sparked instant internet fury. "This isn't Snow White," one TikTok raged. "It's Lord of the Rings meets identity politics." Memes exploded overnight. Disney found itself mocked on every platform, from X to Reddit to Facebook mom groups once loyal to the brand, while late-night hosts danced awkwardly around the controversy, trying to defend a film no one had seen yet, but everyone already hated. And yet as Disney fumbled, Brett Cooper soared. She didn't just promote her film, she embodied it. Her YouTube commentaries became mini-movement rallies, her behind-the-scenes vlogs bursting with heart, humility, and quiet defiance as she walked through sun-dappled forest sets, posed beside life-sized animatronic dwarfs, and as the embers of the cinematic battlefield cooled, what began as a humble fairy tale about innocence and love had mutated into a seismic cultural reckoning so vast, so unrelenting, that even the most insulated towers of Hollywood's elite began to tremble under its weight. For while Snow White and the Evil Queen had started as a counter-project, a small flame flickering in defiance of a dying Disney tradition, it now roared like wildfire across the entertainment industry, leaving behind a trail of stunned executives, wounded egos, and legacy studios forced to confront the brutal truth they had ignored for too long. That sincerity had become the rarest currency in modern storytelling, and Brett Cooper had spent it more wisely than anyone. In the days following the film's meteoric success, Cooper's star rose beyond anything the Daily Wire had anticipated. She wasn't just the face of Snow White, she was the face of a quiet cultural revolt, the Gen Z embodiment of an old-world ethos resurrected with grit and grace. Her image now plastered on magazine covers, on murals, on bootleg posters sold outside universities by students who no longer laughed at fairy tales, but clung to them like life rafts in a world drowning in irony. Talk shows begged for her presence, yet she appeared selectively, strategically, always poised, always clear in her message. This wasn't about winning. This was about remembering. And yet, the implications of that win spiraled far beyond her control. Hollywood insiders leaked panicked memos from Disney's executive boardrooms, directives to scrap or delay other live-action remakes already in development, from Hercules to Pocahontas, as new concerns mounted over whether audiences would tolerate more ideological revisionism masquerading as modernity. Meanwhile, rival studios that had long followed Disney's lead began pivoting, urgently